The quiet confidence that comes from knowing he may never meet another woman who makes him feel quite the same way. When that realization settles into his heart, something begins to change. He no longer sees the relationship as something that simply happened. He begins to see it as something worth protecting. There is an important difference. Many people enjoy what they have. Few intentionally protect it. When a man believes he has found someone truly rare, he becomes more aware of the choices he makes every day. He understands that meaningful relationships are not maintained by luck. They are maintained by effort, by consistency, by appreciation. One of the first things that grows is gratitude. Gratitude has a remarkable way of changing perspective. Instead of focusing on what is missing, it highlights everything that is already present. He becomes thankful for conversations that make him think differently, for laughter that arrives after difficult days, for encouragement that appears exactly when it is needed, for the feeling that someone genuinely believes in him. Those experiences become treasures because they cannot be bought, they cannot be forced, they can only be shared. Another sign that he knows your value is that he becomes more patient. Patience is often misunderstood. People think it means waiting. Real patience means choosing understanding before reacting. It means listening before assuming. It means protecting the relationship even when emotions are running high. A man who sees someone as irreplaceable begins recognizing that winning an argument is far less important than preserving trust, because trust takes time to build, but only moments to damage. There is also the way admiration quietly deepens. At first, admiration may focus on obvious qualities, confidence, intelligence, warmth. But over time, he notices things that many people overlook. The way you remain kind when life becomes difficult. The way you treat people who cannot offer you anything in return. The way you stay true to your values even when compromise would be easier. Those moments reveal character. And character has a way of becoming more attractive with every passing year. Another important sign is that he begins feeling emotionally refreshed after spending time with you. Some relationships leave people feeling exhausted, emotionally drained, constantly questioning themselves. Healthy relationships do the opposite. They create energy, hope, optimism, sense that tomorrow feels a little brighter because someone meaningful is walking beside you. That emotional renewal becomes something he naturally begins seeking, not because he cannot function without it, because life genuinely feels richer with it. There is also the way meaningful relationships encourage honesty, not forced honesty, comfortable honesty. The kind where difficult conversations no longer feel like threats, where disagreements become opportunities to understand each other more deeply, where vulnerability is met with compassion instead of criticism. That environment allows trust to continue expanding, and trust always deepens connection. Another sign is that he starts appreciating your consistency more than grand gestures. Grand gestures are memorable. Consistency is transformative, showing kindness on ordinary days, remaining supportive during stressful weeks, keeping promises when nobody is watching, remembering what matters. These small actions quietly build a relationship that feels dependable. Dependability creates security. Security creates emotional freedom. And emotional freedom allows love to flourish naturally. There is also the realization that your presence influences his outlook on life. Perhaps challenges no longer seem quite as overwhelming. Perhaps victories feel more meaningful because they are shared. Perhaps difficult seasons become easier to navigate because someone offers perspective instead of panic. These subtle changes often go unnoticed until one day he realizes just how much stronger he has become simply because of the relationship. That realization creates profound appreciation. Another fascinating sign is that he becomes increasingly interested in your happiness. Not because he feels responsible for creating every happy moment, because your joy genuinely matters to him. Seeing you succeed brings him satisfaction. Watching you grow brings him pride. Knowing that you are at peace gives him peace. That kind of emotional investment reveals a connection that extends beyond attraction. It reflects genuine care. There is also the way healthy love encourages freedom instead of control. When someone feels secure, they do not constantly need reassurance. They celebrate individuality, support personal growth, encourage dreams. A man who understands your uniqueness wants to see you become even more fully yourself, because he admires who you are, not who he wishes you would become. That is one of the strongest foundations of lasting love. Another sign is that memories become emotional landmarks. He may not remember every conversation word for word, but he remembers how those conversations changed him. He remembers feeling understood after a difficult day, feeling inspired after discussing future goals, feeling calmer after sharing worries that had weighed heavily on his mind. Those emotional experiences remain because they touched something deeper than memory. They shaped perspective. There is also the realization that meaningful love is rarely complicated. Healthy relationships still require effort. They do not require constant confusion. They are built on clarity, honesty, mutual respect. Both people know they are valued because actions consistently communicate it. That clarity creates confidence, and confidence allows emotional intimacy to grow. Perhaps one of the greatest differences between temporary attraction and lasting admiration is that admiration continues increasing with time. Temporary attraction often depends on novelty. Lasting admiration depends on discovery. Every season reveals another admirable quality, another example of resilience, another demonstration of integrity, another reminder of kindness. The relationship becomes richer because understanding becomes deeper, and deeper understanding almost always creates deeper appreciation. Another beautiful sign is that he begins measuring success differently. Success is no longer only about career achievements or personal accomplishments. It also includes the quality of the relationships in his life, the peace he experiences, the trust he shares, the emotional support he receives. He realizes that genuine connection is not a distraction from a meaningful life. It is one of the greatest contributors to it. That shift in perspective changes priorities because he understands that achievements feel far more rewarding when there is someone meaningful to celebrate them with. There is also something extraordinary about being with someone who inspires authenticity, not by asking you to change, but by making you feel safe enough to stop pretending. When masks disappear, real connection begins. When performances end, genuine intimacy grows. That is why emotionally healthy relationships often feel surprisingly effortless. Not because they lack challenges, because neither person is wasting energy trying to become someone they are not. Eventually, a man may realize that the rarest quality he has ever experienced is not excitement, beauty, or even compatibility by itself. It is the quiet certainty that someone consistently brings out the best parts of who he is. The courage to be honest, the confidence to keep growing, the willingness to communicate with openness instead of fear, the desire to love with patience instead of pride. As these realizations continue unfolding, he understands that what makes someone unforgettable is not one extraordinary moment, but thousands of ordinary moments filled with sincerity, compassion, emotional wisdom, and unwavering respect. Those moments gradually become the foundation of trust, the source of lasting admiration, and the reason future relationships are naturally measured against the standard that was quietly established. He comes to see that truly remarkable people do not leave an impression because they demand attention. They leave an impression because they consistently offer understanding when life feels confusing, encouragement when confidence begins to fade, kindness when circumstances become difficult, and hope when challenges seem overwhelming. That kind of presence changes a person's understanding of love itself. It teaches that the strongest relationships are not built on perfection or constant private listen, but on daily choices to listen, to support, to forgive, to encourage, to remain honest, and to keep showing up with integrity. Once he has experienced a connection grounded in those qualities, he recognizes that what made it extraordinary was never the search for someone flawless, but the discovery of someone whose character, consistency, emotional generosity, and authentic heart created a sense of peace and belonging so uncommon that he cannot imagine finding another woman who could ever leave quite the same mark on his life. He cannot imagine finding another woman who could ever leave quite the same mark on his life. That realization does not happen because he suddenly stops noticing everyone else. It happens because he starts understanding what truly matters. There is a big difference between noticing someone and feeling deeply connected to someone. Attraction can happen in a moment. Connection is built over time. Connection is created through hundreds of conversations, through moments of laughter, through challenges overcome together, through trust that has been earned one day at a time. Once a man understands that difference, he becomes far less interested in temporary excitement and far more interested in lasting peace. Another sign that he knows your value is that your opinion begins influencing the way he sees himself. We all have voices in our lives. Some voices create doubt. Others create confidence. The people who matter most are often the ones whose encouragement feels believable because it comes from genuine understanding. When you recognize strengths that he struggles to see in himself, your words carry weight. Not because you flatter him, because you see him honestly. That kind of encouragement stays with a person long after the conversation has ended. There is also something powerful about emotional consistency. Consistency is not exciting in the way movies often portray love, but it is what creates emotional safety. Knowing someone will respond with kindness instead of unpredictability. Knowing they will communicate instead of disappear. Knowing they will work through difficulties instead of running from them. These qualities quietly become priceless because they remove unnecessary fear from the cool relationship. A man who experiences this begins realizing that consistency is one of the rarest forms of love. Another sign is that he starts making decisions with the relationship in mind. Not because he has lost his independence, because meaningful relationships naturally influence important choices. He thinks about how certain decisions affect both of you. He considers your feelings, your dreams, your future. This shift happens naturally because emotionally significant people become part of how we imagine tomorrow. There is also the way meaningful love changes emotional habits. Perhaps he becomes a better listener, more patient, more thoughtful, more willing to apologize, more open to difficult conversations. Growth like this rarely happens because someone demands it. It happens because genuine admiration creates the desire to become better. When someone inspires positive change simply through the quality of their character, they leave a lasting impact. Another important sign is that appreciation replaces assumptions. Instead of assuming you will always be there, he values your presence. He thanks you for small acts of kindness. He notices your effort. He recognizes your patience. Gratitude keeps relationships alive because it reminds people never to take each other for granted. There is also the realization that trust creates freedom. Many people think commitment limits freedom. Healthy commitment actually creates it. When trust is strong, there is less fear, less jealousy, less uncertainty. Both people are free to be themselves because they know the relationship is built on honesty rather than suspicion. That freedom allows love to become something peaceful instead of stressful. Another fascinating sign is that ordinary conversations become the highlight of his day. Not because every conversation is profound, because the person matters more than the topic. Talking about work, family, dreams, funny moments, random thoughts, everything feels meaningful because genuine connection transforms simple interactions into memorable experiences. This is often how emotional intimacy quietly grows, conversation by conversation, day by day. There is also the way respect continues increasing over time. Respect is unlike attraction. Attraction may begin quickly. Respect must be earned. It grows through reliability, integrity, compassion, emotional maturity. Watching someone consistently choose kindness when it would be easier to choose frustration. Watching someone remain honest when dishonesty might be more convenient. Watching someone stay loyal to their values. These moments create admiration that becomes stronger every year. Another sign is that he notices how different he feels around you. Perhaps he laughs more easily, feels calmer, dreams more confidently, communicates more openly. Relationships have an emotional atmosphere. Some create tension, others create peace. The healthiest ones help people become more fully themselves. When he notices that your presence consistently brings out the best version of who he is, he begins recognizing how extraordinary that experience truly is. There is also something beautiful about shared growth. The strongest relationships are not built because two perfect people meet. They are built because two imperfect people encourage each other to keep growing. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to learn. Each success becomes something worth celebrating together. Each difficult season strengthens resilience instead of weakening commitment. Growth creates memories that excitement alone never could. Another important realization is that meaningful love makes people feel emotionally seen. Everyone wants to be understood, not just heard, understood. Have someone notice the emotions behind the words, the hopes behind the goals, the fears behind the silence. When a man feels genuinely understood, he often realizes that this experience is much rarer than he once believed. And rarity creates appreciation. There is also the way kindness quietly becomes unforgettable. Grand romantic gestures capture attention. Daily kindness captures the heart. The encouraging message, the patient response, the thoughtful question, the willingness to listen after a difficult day. These small acts become the language of lasting love because they communicate care repeatedly over time. Another sign that he knows he may never meet another woman like you is that he stops looking for perfection. Instead, he starts valuing authenticity. Authentic people are not flawless. They are honest. They admit mistakes. They continue learning. They communicate sincerely. They remain genuine even when life becomes difficult. Authenticity creates trust because people know exactly who they are loving, and trust creates emotional security. Perhaps one of the greatest lessons he learns is that real love is not measured by intensity, but by consistency. Intensity can create unforgettable beginnings. Consistency creates unforgettable lives. It is the repeated choice to care, to communicate, to encourage, to respect, to remain emotionally present. Those repeated choices transform affection into commitment and admiration into lasting devotion. As the years pass, he may find that the memories he treasures most are not defined by extraordinary events, but by ordinary days filled with extraordinary meaning. The quiet conversations that lasted late into the evening, the moments of shared laughter after stressful weeks, the encouragement that arrived exactly when it was needed, the calm reassurance that reminded him he was never facing life's challenges alone. Those experiences slowly became woven into his understanding of what genuine love feels like. He realized that the rarest gift one person can give another is not perfection, but consistent emotional presence, the willingness to stand beside someone through uncertainty, celebrate their victories without envy, support their dreams without hesitation, and remind them of their strength when they begin to doubt themselves. That kind of love does more than create happiness. It shapes character. It builds confidence. It inspires courage. It teaches patience. It transforms the way a person approaches every future relationship because it establishes a new standard built not on fantasy, but on authentic connection. Eventually, he understands that meeting someone extraordinary has very little to do with finding a flawless person and everything to do with finding someone whose integrity remains steady, whose compassion never feels conditional, whose encouragement continues through every season, and whose quiet strength creates a sense of home wherever they are together. That understanding becomes impossible to forget because it reminds him that the greatest relationships are never defined by how impressively they begin, but by how faithfully they continue, day after day, through trust, respect, kindness, emotional generosity, shared purpose, and the rare ability to make another human being feel deeply valued simply by being exactly who they are, creating a connection so meaningful that it quietly becomes the standard against which every future experience of love is measured, not out of comparison alone, but out of gratitude for having once experienced something so authentic, so uplifting, and so profoundly life-changing. How? Not out of comparison alone, but out of gratitude for having once experienced something so authentic, so uplifting, and so profoundly life-changing. That gratitude changes the way he loves. It changes the way he listens. It changes the way he shows up. Because once someone understands the value of a rare connection, they stop treating it as something ordinary. They begin treating it as one of the greatest gifts life can offer. There is another sign that reveals just how deeply someone values you. He starts noticing the little things before they ever become big things. He notices when your energy changes, when your smile seems quieter than usual, when something feels different even if you have not said a word. Not because he is trying to solve every problem, because paying attention has become natural. People notice what matters to them. And emotional attention is one of the clearest expressions of genuine care. There is also the way appreciation becomes more specific. Instead of offering generic compliments, he admires qualities that reflect who you truly are. Your resilience, your honesty, your patience, your ability to remain kind during difficult moments, your quiet confidence. These are qualities that cannot be captured in a photograph. They are discovered through time, and once they are discovered, they often become far more attractive than anything visible on the surface. Another beautiful sign is that he becomes more intentional about protecting your trust. Trust is fragile. It takes months or years to build. Only one careless decision to damage. When someone becomes truly important, he thinks before speaking. He becomes more aware of his promises, more aware of the impact of his actions. Not because he is trying to appear perfect, because he understands that trust deserves to be protected. There is also something remarkable about emotional security. When a relationship feels emotionally secure, people stop wasting energy on unnecessary fear. They stop wondering where they stand. They stop questioning every message or every silence. Instead, they invest that energy into building something meaningful together. That kind of peace allows love to mature naturally. Another sign is that he finds joy in supporting your happiness even when it has nothing to do with him. Perhaps you accomplish a personal goal, learn a new skill, experience something exciting. His happiness comes from seeing you happy. That is a powerful form of love because it is rooted in generosity rather than self-interest. Healthy relationships celebrate each person's individual growth while strengthening the partnership at the same time. There is also the realization that emotional closeness is created through everyday honesty, not just during serious conversations, through simple moments, sharing thoughts, expressing gratitude, talking openly about hopes and concerns. These ordinary exchanges slowly create extraordinary intimacy because they remind both people that nothing important needs to remain hidden. Another sign that someone has become irreplaceable is that he becomes increasingly aware of your influence, not in dramatic ways, in quiet ones. Perhaps you encouraged him to become more patient, to communicate more openly, to believe in himself during difficult seasons, to approach challenges with greater confidence. Those changes become part of who he is, and people rarely forget those who helped shape their growth. There is also the way meaningful relationships encourage emotional generosity. When someone consistently experiences kindness, they naturally become kinder. When they experience patience, they become more patient. When they experience understanding, they become more understanding. Healthy love has a way of multiplying the qualities that make relationships stronger. It inspires people to become better versions of themselves. Another important realization is that the strongest relationships are built through countless moments that seem ordinary while they are happening. Making coffee together, talking during a drive, sharing stories at the end of a long day, laughing about something completely unexpected. These moments may never appear extraordinary to anyone else, but they become extraordinary because of the emotions attached to them. Years later, those are often the memories that remain brightest. There is also the way emotional maturity changes the experience of conflict. Disagreements no longer become opportunities to prove who is right. They become opportunities to understand each other more deeply. Listening replaces interrupting. Curiosity replaces defensiveness. Respect replaces pride. That shift creates stronger relationships because every challenge becomes another opportunity to strengthen trust instead of weakening it. Another sign is that he begins appreciating your presence even in silence. Silence often reveals the true quality of a relationship. If silence feels uncomfortable, the connection may still depend on constant distraction. If silence feels peaceful, it often means the relationship has reached a deeper level, where simply being together feels enough. That comfort cannot be manufactured. It develops naturally through emotional safety and mutual respect. There is also the realization that genuine admiration continues growing because people continue revealing new layers of character. Every challenge uncovers resilience. Every disappointment reveals grace. Every success reveals humility. The relationship never stops teaching him something new about who you are. And each discovery strengthens appreciation. Another powerful sign is that he starts measuring love less by words and more by consistency. Words matter. Actions build belief. Promises create hope. Consistency creates confidence. When someone repeatedly demonstrates honesty, reliability, encouragement, and compassion, those actions become impossible to ignore. They create a sense of certainty that words alone could never provide. There is also something extraordinary about feeling emotionally accepted. Acceptance does not mean pretending flaws do not exist. It means knowing that mistakes do not erase your worth. Disagreements do not destroy respect. Difficult seasons do not eliminate commitment. This kind of acceptance gives people the courage to keep growing without fearing rejection every time they fall short. Perhaps this is why truly meaningful relationships become so unforgettable, They remind people that love is not about constantly proving your value. It is about sharing your authentic self with someone who recognizes your humanity, celebrates your strengths, supports your growth, and remains present through life's changing seasons. Eventually, a man begins to understand that the woman he may never find again was never defined by perfection. She was defined by consistency of character, by the quiet confidence that remained steady through uncertainty, by the kindness that never depended on convenience, by the honesty that strengthened trust instead of avoiding difficult conversations, by the emotional generosity that made encouragement feel natural and forgiveness feel possible. As he reflects on everything those qualities added to his life, he realizes they created something much greater than romance. They created a partnership where both people became stronger together than they could have become alone. They created a relationship where ordinary days carried extraordinary meaning because they were filled with mutual respect, genuine laughter, thoughtful conversations, shared dreams, patient understanding, and unwavering support. Over time, those countless moments became the foundation of a love that could not be replaced by novelty or excitement alone. They became the standard because they represented the very best qualities of emotional connection, trust that remained dependable, admiration that continued deepening, communication that encouraged honesty, compassion that softened difficult moments, and authenticity that allowed both people to feel completely accepted. And as that understanding settles more deeply into his heart, he recognizes that the greatest privilege in any relationship is never finding someone flawless, but finding someone whose presence consistently inspires peace, whose character continually earns respect, whose encouragement strengthens confidence, and whose love quietly transforms everyday life into something richer, warmer, more meaningful, and more hopeful than he ever believed possible, leaving behind a legacy of connection that continues shaping his heart, his choices, and his understanding of what real love is meant to be, reminding him that some people are not unforgettable because they tried to be extraordinary, but because they chose, day after day, to be genuine, compassionate, dependable, emotionally present, and deeply committed to building a love that grows stronger with every passing season rather than fading with time.